Hello, folks. Welcome aboard for a bit of a roadmap stream, and we'd love to be in a happier situation than we are right now, but we're not. This evening's stream is going to take a slightly different format to the usual, in that we're going to do a little bit more Q&Aing than we would normally, because there's some big stuff that needs addressing, and we hope to get on with that. So we're not gonna hang around. I'm joined by Matt. Sorry, Matt. Sorry.
Hello.
Matt is senior producer for Dovetail Games, and I'm Sam, and I handle a bit of this and a bit of that, but player research is my primary objective in the company. We're also joined in the background on the hotline by Natalie. Natster, that's what she goes by. Natster and JD and Mike the T-Boy are all kicking around. So we've got plenty of people to kind of gather up your questions. But first off, I wanted to kind of walk you through what just happened, because it's important, and hopefully this is not to explain. This is not by way of excuse. It's so that you can understand what's just happened and why we're referring specifically to PlayStation 4, why the PlayStation 4 issue has emerged. So I've gone to PowerPoint because I figured Matt would approve of this. So we're gonna start off with a bit of a history lesson. So if we back up a couple of years, we're talking about Train Sim World 2020. And we had to make a transition out of Train Sim World 2020 over to Train Sim World 2. And that involved a migration from Unreal Engine 4.16 to Unreal Engine 4.23. Matt, what was the kind of difference in engine capabilities between those two?
I mean, 416 puts you back even before Fortnite. I mean, it's that old. They did so many changes between in 417 and 418 specifically to make the engine run much better on games consoles, and all sorts of things. So between 416 and 423, you've got an engine which was pretty good in 416, but you got a world-class engine by the time you've got to even 419 and 420, let alone 423. So it matured significantly in that time period.
Right, and we needed to evolve the game forwards in order to be able to get more out of it. So the decision was made to release Train Sim World 2, and as part of that, we had to deal with everything in the add-on collection that was available. What that basically meant was we had to go through every single add-on and upgrade it to be suited to 4.23. This is why what this means will become apparent relatively quickly. When we talk about the number of add-ons, that's what we were talking about at the time. 20 different add-ons were available that were going to be preserved. And that meant they all had to have development work applied to them in order to be upgraded. So we got through, well, hold on, there's one other piece of that puzzle. There was quite a lot of it that had been released on disc. And one of the things that was problematic there is we had no way of recognising that someone owned a root on disk. So we had to figure out a way of making that work, and we got through it, but it was bumpy. It wasn't a clean launch. There was work to be done. Now, releasing all of that preserved collection, that took several months to get through. About 4 months it took us to get to the point where all of the preserved collection would work on Train Sim World 2. And then we made the decision this year to upgrade to 4.26. Now, 4.26 gives us, again, greater capabilities, and it basically allows us to take the game forwards. Is there any specifics that we gain from 426?
I mean, the single biggest key reason we upgraded to 426, other than there's some performance improvements and so forth, was without it, you can't deliver to next-gen consoles. That really was the sort of the major reason we wanted to go, so that we could create targeted builds for Xbox Series and PlayStation 5.
And as much as upgrading the core of Train Sim World 2 was a good place to start, once again, we did need to go back and look at all of the preserved collection. And we also needed to make adjustments to the new add-ons that emerged in the time between Train Sim World 2 and Train Sim World Rush Hour. So when it comes to actually releasing this stuff, we're talking about 7 different platforms. And that's I've done these across the top in alphabetical order. So there's no prevalence given other than the alphabet. So you've got the Epic Game Store, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Steam, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Xbox Game Pass. And how did that go? The core update, no problem. Everything worked fine with the core update. This is not a core problem. The problem that is currently in existence has nothing to do with the core. The core update went through absolutely fine. Not an issue in the slightest. And part of the reason that we pushed the update back by a couple of days was to ensure that the sequence of updates was carried out in the right order. Because what we desperately wanted to avoid was updates being carried out in the wrong order, in which case it could actually break your DLC library. Is this sounding familiar to anyone at the moment? So, of course, we weren't just talking about core. Immediately after core was done, we needed to update all the routes. That's what it actually looks like. In fact, there's even a couple more than that. But if you had the entire collection, that's what it looks like on each one of those platforms. And again, this worked absolutely fine with one minor exception. PlayStation 4. We had an issue on PlayStation 4. And the issue that we had was that 3 of the routes that are included in PlayStation 4, the patching system that was applied to those routes applied to the wrong package file. And so when it went to look at the packages to kind of go, what have you got in your library? It refers to something called the package database. And 3 routes were wrong. So it kept repeatedly trying to update the route that wouldn't then allow the update to take place, and as a result it broke the database for that individual user. The three routes in question, it doesn't really matter what they were. I mean, it doesn't matter what they are, or in fact were, because we've got good news coming up shortly. The fact was, it wrecked the database that tells your console which routes are working and which aren't, and the upshot was you're locked out of your library. I'll let you just sit on that for just 2 seconds, and then we will come back to the show. So that's the history lesson of what we were trying to do. This was not a simple problem. The upgrade process that we had here was not simple. But that's not none of this is an excuse. None of this is designed to serve as an excuse. We had distributed the correct packages to everybody, but for some reason 3 on Sony didn't work correctly. They didn't. We don't know at the current time whether it's because there was a configuration error on Sony's side that pointed in the wrong place, or whether we'd inadvertently sent the PS4 version, we'd sent the wrong copies of those files. We don't know, but we accept responsibility. And therefore the onus is on us to fix this as quickly as possible, because this does nobody any favours. We did not wake up to do Rush Hour and go, you know what would be great if we make everybody really angry and lock them out of their content. So we are working on a fix as quickly as possible. We've had a dozen or more people from Dovetail working over the weekend to try and solve the problem. This included our development director, who was going through every single batch file, checking kilobyte sizes, because the difference in size between the older version of the route and the new version of the route is a matter of kilobytes, to make sure that the correct packages had been sent over. And I've put this in somewhat layman's terms because obviously not everybody is a programming specialist, and hopefully you can understand kind of the scale of the problem and how this stuff happens. Doesn't excuse anything. The only thing that matters now is fixing it, and we're close to a fix. We've had a few volunteers from the community who got in touch to help us try different solutions out, to try various different ways of unbreaking this problem. The irony, of course, is that if you were to go and buy the route right now, it would work because it points at a different package which is already pre-updated. So it's working if you buy it new, but we don't want anyone to buy it new. We want people to have access to the stuff they already own. And we're close to a fix. Matt, what's your understanding right now?
Um, yeah, it's. I'm clinging on to an understanding, to be honest, from the PlayStation side of things. It sounds like there's a lot of discussions going on between us and Sony to try and work out not so much necessarily what went wrong, but how to fix it. Because we need to make sure that everyone can get access to the content that they've got. And it sounds like that they're on the right path to something. And what we kind of need to do now is get a couple more people to just try that out and make sure that this is working. And then if that all goes okay, then we'll be in a place where we can actually broadcast that change to everybody. But we're not going to do that. We know it works, because
Yeah.
if it works, then it's a whole load of wasted effort for everybody, and we don't want to do that.
So basically the fix that we're proposing, what it involves is there will be a very tiny update from Sony, after which you'll be able to then reselect all of your content, and the stuff that's already installed should be fine. The ones that weren't working properly should then be fine. I saw someone ask a moment ago. Thanks, Nat. Actually, she just repeated the question. Yeah, don't bother trying to manually reinstall anything right now. If you haven't had any joy so far, nothing has changed yet. What we're doing now is we're testing this process from end to end on live consoles to make sure that it works. A couple of people have said, "Didn't we test it before putting it out?" Yeah, we tested it a lot, and that's why out of all the files that went out there, it worked in the majority of cases. Now that's no consolation to those whose DLC content is locked out. That's no consolation at all. But the fact is that everything was tested correctly, but something procedural went wrong along the way, and we've been working to fix that for the last 4 or 5 days without really taking a break on it. So, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not good enough. You in the 21st century, you should expect a little bit better than that, and we let you down, and that's not good enough. So the first thing that we want to do is get it fixed. For those volunteering to help test, we've got all of the public testers that we need for this already, and we're very optimistic that should the fix that is being deployed work fine with all of those test cases, that we'll be back in business anytime. Until such a time as that's fixed, we're not going to. We'll worry about what happens next after that's been fixed. But I mean, please rest assured, your collection is intact. You are not going to lose your connection. Your collection, I should say. It may take another few days before it returns to you, but you're not going to lose it. It's definitely going to be restored. Fixing this is our number 1 priority. Now, that's PlayStation, right? And we'll take your questions in a few minutes, but we want to cover some of the other things that happened as well. So let's talk about the localization files on Steam, because that was wacky. What happened there?
So that one was that's just where, the circumstances give you a nice swift kick in the teeth. This was really unfortunate. Essentially, as always with our stuff, our localization, we have a dedicated what we call LQA process, localization QA. And what that involves is local users, so a German user testing German and so on and so forth. And they will run the content and test it in all the different languages. And we go through all the process like we normally do for our normal QA. There's an LQA process, which then does the same thing and makes sure that everything runs fine in different languages. And that was run across all of this and across on all the different consoles. So all those 7 platforms, all the LQA tests were run, and we were in good shape. Everything was working, as it always has done in the past. So, of course, then we deploy it and we go live. and it doesn't work. So we're all scratching our heads, figuring out what's going on. And it basically transpired that on Steam, and this I think is related to something that's changed in 426 that we hadn't latched onto, the way that it handled the localization switchover meant that it only actually worked if your machine was English. So actually, for all of the people, they're all English systems that are doing this. All the people doing LQA are in the UK, even though there might be a German speaker. Um, and yeah, so they're doing this. They're doing the test. So the system would only work in English if you're on an English PC. If we changed when we were able to reproduce the problem, the way we reproduced it was by going into Windows settings and switching the machine over so that it was in Germany as far as it was concerned. All the local regional settings were in Germany, and at that point, the localization stops working, which is a new behavior that we've not seen before. However, that is now part of our LQA process going forwards, so that when they do tests for each of the languages, they don't just switch the language in Steam. The LQA team will now be switching their system over as well, so that we can make sure that that's working. But we'll also test it in English as well, because we know some people on English systems maybe want to run it in the other language. So we've got additional tests that we can do now to prevent this from happening again. But that one caught us out. It's a behavior that we've not had before, even though all of our previous tests have passed with flying colors. So we've learned, and it won't happen again.
Yeah, it's one of those things that until it happens for the first time, it never even occurs to anybody to think of it, and that's a learning curve. Now, while staying on the PC build at the moment, we're seeing quite a few people reporting Unreal Engine crashes, particularly when they exit the game. Now, we know already that if you had mods installed, or if you changed your ini file, or if you're trying to use DirectX 12 on PC, anything could happen. Not saying that this is the cause, but anything could happen. We can't really investigate if your build of TSW had mods or tweaks applied to it. So the first thing we'd suggest is play it completely vanilla and see if you still get the problem. But there is some known issues that we've got with regards to the UE crash upon exit. So what's going on there?
So actually, with the help of a couple of people on the forums last night, big shout out, thank you very much. We were able to try and pin down what's going on with these crashes. This is where you play the game, and particularly it's more common when you pause the game and use the new exit key, that's the exit button that's on the pause screen, rather than the exit button that's the original one on the main menu. And what happens is the game exits normally and then pops up a crash window. So it doesn't actually interfere with playing the game. It's just really untidy as you're exiting. And we've traced that down to something we're going on with .o Live. So the team are able to reproduce that now, and they've been working on it today. I haven't had an update on where the fix is at with that, but I'm confident that one will be fixed very shortly. So because yeah, they've pinned down even the line of code I think that's actually causing the problem. So I'm expecting that to be resolved very soon.
So yeah, so that's a known one. I mean, it shouldn't interfere with your ability to play the game, but you know, at the same time, that's not what we want. That's
No,
that's not ideal.
no, this will make it to exits cleanly. But so this was never causing a problem mid game, if you like. It was just at the exit, but this will tidy that up.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Xbox. Now, before we get on to kind of performance issues overall, because there are a few performance issues that have been reported, Xbox didn't launch completely cleanly either, but we deployed an update for that over the weekend. What was the problem going on there?
So this was another one that kind of tripped us up, in that we built all new packages, and package numbers for all of these systems all have version numbers. And I don't just mean the version number you see when you go into the settings screen. Every individual package has a version number as well. And what seems to have happened on the Xbox One builds, because of the way that our build system works and the way we were shipping builds, the builds that went up for the Rush Hour release, the 426 release, had lower version numbers. Now, this didn't get flagged by the package ingestion system on Microsoft's side, so that's something we can pass on to them. And therefore, it didn't come up as a particular problem. So everything looked like it's good. Of course, when it went live, some fairly innocent code does a fairly sensible if version X greater version Y, then download version X. And of course, the version numbers weren't greater than Y, so therefore it didn't do the download. So there's been an update to make it download, which effectively you could force it by just doing the re-download of those things, which I think is what people have been doing. But in the meantime, we've now rolled all of our version numbers over what they were previously. So every new package will definitely have a bigger version number than it's ever any of those packages have ever had before. So this problem will not recur, and we've added it into our knowledge base of every package must always have a greater version number, even if we've shifted builds, and therefore, because when you shift to a different build sequence, those version numbers go back to one again, which under normal circumstances is not a problem. But in this case, we've now found it is specifically a problem. So that won't happen again either.
Okay, so those are all the kind of the exceptional. Those are the kind of launch problems that we've had. To summarise, PlayStation 4 owners will have you back up and running as soon as humanly possible. We've got a fix that is being tested with the community at the moment, in partnership between ourselves and Sony. And as soon as we've verified that works perfectly, then we'll give the instructions of what you need to do. There will be a cleaner solution in time, but there is a solution that we believe will get you up and running now. But we're just waiting for those tests to clear to make sure it's not going to make anything worse. So there will be a slight process to follow. There's nothing you can do in the meantime to change anything up. And we don't expect the wait to be much longer. I'd love to give you an exact time, but until the tests have concluded, we can't give you an exact time. On PC, Unreal Engine crashes we're investigating. We know what the problem is with the one that's closing down, that pops up at the end of the game. And that's in hand to be dealt with. If you're experiencing an Unreal Engine crash at any other point, please do submit a support ticket so that we can investigate that further. The first step to finding a solution is being able to identify the problem. And until we can see the problem, we can't fix it. Contrary to popular opinion, we test everything before it goes out. We are well aware of the vast majority of problems, and we resolve most of those. But occasionally we are caught off guard, and therefore anything you can do to help it will speed a resolution through. Xbox. Let's talk about texture issues. Have you seen the reports of texture issues on Xbox? There's some kind of flickery texture business going on in places from here and there.
Yes, I've seen the reports. And once we've got all of the immediate access to the game issues resolved, that's one of the next things we're going to get moved on to. So we're building up a list of issues, but it's being dealt with in priority order. And obviously not being able to access the game at all is the priority one.
That's right. I mean, under normal circumstances, if something has launched smoothly, our first step is to gather that kind of feedback. I saw someone mention a moment ago, sorry I didn't spot your name, we're talking about low frame rate issues down into kind of double digit, kind of 15 in the teens on console. And that's exactly the kind of thing that we would investigate in this period normally. But it's kind of all hands to the pump, making sure that people can actually access the game and play what they own. That's our number one concern right now. And then we'll get to the feedback that you've sent since that time. We've seen a lot of feedback with regards to the new UI and the way that that's laid out. Now, there's always the shock of the new, where new stuff is uncomfortable for people to start with. But what's the grace period that you would give on that before going, okay, actually we do need to make some changes?
I think we'll watch that. I don't think we have a set time on that. We generally, what we do is we just watch the feedback and we just see whether or not trends are changing. Because people did initially, for example, last year there was a lot of people didn't like the change we did to the HUD in the bottom right corner of the screen. But over a period of time, people got used to it and actually liked it the way it was once they got used to how it was. So we are going to be actively watching the forums. We are actively watching the forums even while we're busy resolving these other issues. We're watching the forums all the time, looking to see what people are saying, noting down the feedback, reevaluating. It's like, could that be better? Actually, no, that's a valid point. Let's add that to a list to think about once these other issues are resolved. So we're watching, taking notes, and over a period of time, we'll just see how the thought evolves essentially.
Yeah, it's a period of evaluation, and then sorting out the actually that's bang on the money. They're absolutely right. That's a change that should be made, and then getting the resources put aside for that. Right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Had a couple of comments from people saying like, "Why aren't you answering questions yet?" We're trying to deliver the information that is going to be most useful to you first. If you're experiencing any kind of a problem at all, we want to make sure that you've got that information, so that if you choose to rewatch the stream later, all of the kind of the information burst is up front. And then, because once we start asking questions, answering questions, they kind of bounce us around all over the place. So we want to make sure that the salient information is up front, and then we'll get into questions and work from them. On which note, SK asks, do I need to buy the add-ons again for PS4? No, do not do that. If you own those add-ons, you own those add-ons, and they will be restored to you as soon as we possibly can. You do not need to rebuy anything, because that would not be a sensible business model. Not unless we wanted to have a visitation from various law enforcement people. No, this is accidental. There's nothing deliberate about this in the slightest, and frankly, it would be a case of insanity were one to do this deliberately. So no, we're going to reintroduce them as quickly as possible. So yeah, let's turn things around to questions. Seb asks, Seb A Alligator asks, will you need to re-download everything once this is fixed? Not sure yet. There's a very small update that is required to kind of reset the database of what you own. Whether you will then need to re-download other add-ons and so on, don't know yet. But hopefully the process should be a simple one. As soon as we've got the instructions, we'll let you know. But right now, that's as much information as I have that is kind of concrete. Yeah. Swiss Let's Play says, that was a bad update, with a bunch of exclamation marks. Well, it was. Yeah. The update itself's pretty good, but if you can't play it, then no, it's not a good update. It's a bad update. Yeah. There we are. Right, there we go. Nat's been working on some questions. What have we got for us? How do you know if you have the right version for Xbox? It won't work if you haven't.
I was going to say, if it's working, you've got the right version. If it's not working,
this is a bunch of stuff that should happen invisibly in the background. It is designed to be user friendly, and what it's ended up being is anything but. But it's designed to be user friendly. So if it plays, it's working. The end. And that's where we want to get everybody to start with, and then we'll work on, does it play right? Does it play smoothly? And so on. That's the kind of stuff we would put in our first update after a game of this kind anyway. Cold Cone asks, does this affect the release schedule for the next Rush Hour routes? How's the schedule for the other two routes looking at the moment?
It's looking fine, to be honest. The majority of the work here is from the deployment teams, build teams, and the engineering teams, and that doesn't really affect the team working on Dresden. So it shouldn't have any impact at all. But obviously we're going to, the priority from everybody that needs to work on it. If we find something that needs working on, then we put whoever needs to be doing it on that, and then we'll let you know. But at this point in time, It's not affecting the content creation process at all.
Because you've got separate teams assigned to different parts of the
Yes.
project.
Yeah.
Peter says, will PS5 users with the disc version be able to use the PS5 version of the game? It's only letting me use the PS4 version at the moment. And someone else asked a related question, which was, as an owner of the collector's edition, why can't I upgrade to the PS5 version of the game? This is one that we're aware of already. You will be able to, but we're waiting on Sony to activate the collector's and special edition versions to make sure they line up with your ownership that you had on PS4. That don't know how it got missed, but it got missed, and it is largely disc-based personages once again that miss out. The expectation of time, thank you, Nat, is within the next 2 weeks. That will all line up. Again, it will work. It's just a question of waiting for the store systems to have all of the information it needs in order to kind of percolate through. And that's, if you imagine that you're running the Sony store, it's quite a big and complicated beast, and stuff needs to be scheduled. So there was a scheduling mix-up in there somewhere, I presume, and those versions did not make it through on day one. We spotted it immediately. The second after the update went live, we realised what we hadn't done, and so that's going to be chased down. Right, there were some more questions that have been submitted that Natalie's picked out for us. Yeah. No, actually, I don't. We've got most of those ones. So if you do have questions, start firing them through. We'll answer as many as we can, because it's unusual. This is not the case. But actually, I saw one person ask a moment ago, and again, name check. I apologise. Would it have been better to do a staggered release like we did with Preserved Collection last year? And from my perspective, no, because it worked. There were 3 wrong package files, and that's the problem. The update pointed at the wrong package files. I mean, could we have avoided some of this by staggering it?
No, well, the thing is, last year when we did the release, this was a completely new game. TSW2 was a buy a new game, and therefore it started out with very little DLC, and we added DLC to it as we made it, upgraded it, and made it available. This wasn't buy a new game. This was an in-place upgrade. So you didn't have to buy anything. It just gave you the core update. Once that core update goes live, essentially either all of the DLC gets upgraded simultaneously, or we have to take it offline because it won't work. The package needs to be the 426 version of the package in order for it to work, or it causes a crash or something like that, which is one of the reasons that some of the community mods aren't working, because they're built for 423, whereas you need them to be rebuilt for 426. That's the solution. So yeah, this was very much because we're doing this as an in-place core update, everything has to be done. There's just no halfway house with that. That was the other side of the coin compared to doing a new product where you have then the opportunity to add DLC more gradually to it.
Yeah. I wasn't entirely listening. I'm reading the chat rather than listening to your answers. I apologise. It's not because I'm rude. I'm trying to keep up with the questions that are coming up. Is there a better way to get a better FPS on consoles for Rush Hour, because the number of passengers now appears to be slowing down the FPS? Isn't that something that we thought we'd avoided with the upgrade in the first place?
Yeah, I'm not. So we haven't got to look at the investigation. The engineering team will be the ones that do the initial investigation, and they're solving the high priority issue at the moment. But we do need to do a performance evaluation and find out what's gone wrong there, because people on PlayStation are reporting that they're seeing 15 FPS or so in Boston, and that's clearly unacceptable. So that needs to be looked at, and that'll be one of the things that's sort of high on their list to do once everyone's got access to all of their content. And that's just going to be a question of looking at it and running the performance analysis tools to work out where the cost is. Now, it could just be the detail of the lighting rather than the number of passengers, for example. So we'll be looking into it, and we'll see what's wrong there, and we'll get it fixed.
The S asks, will PS4 continue to be supported after this update disaster? Yeah, we've got no plans to drop support for PS4. As mentioned, for those of you joining a little late, if you want to find out exactly what's going on with the game and the update process, please watch the start of the stream. It's what we covered extensively for the first 20 minutes, and we'll fill you in on exactly what's going on. The update was wrong packages, nothing else. Just wrong packages. There was nothing inherently wrong with PlayStation 4, except that the files it was supposed to update weren't where they were supposed to be, or the update wasn't pointing at the correct files. Either way, there's nothing inherently wrong with the platform. It's a procedural problem, not a programming problem, and that's what we're now trying to unpick. And it's not as simple as just whip something out, whip something else back in, because the knock-on effect is it has corrupted the databases, or it has mutated the databases of the people involved, and therefore we need to do some kind of a reset there to properly restore everything that you have. And it's not going to take long. We're almost there. We're in testing now to make sure that the process works thoroughly, because we don't want to make it any worse.
But yeah, PS4 and Xbox One are still absolutely top tier for us. They're very important platforms. Fully intend to continue supporting them.
Yeah. Jackson says, will I get all my add-ons? Yes. You have lost nothing. Your add-ons are merely hibernating for the time being. They will return. You will have lost nothing. They are temporarily unavailable, and that's not what we wanted. We don't. This is an accidental byproduct of something that we knew that this was a risk, and that's why we put this patching system in place. And in the majority of cases, it worked, and in some cases, it didn't. So that's what we're fixing right now. But we'd gone out of our way to try and avoid this, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Is one way of doing it. Swiss Let's Play, I want my money back for this. Go to the store and tell them that you want your money back for this. Whichever store you got it from, go and those are the people to talk to. It's quite right for you to be able to do so, but that's what you need to. That's the only route you've got, because that's who your transaction was with. There we go. Aren't you afraid? This is poor EUEKP. Aren't you afraid of updating Unreal Engine in a couple of years? I mean, you could eventually develop many DLCs, and you're going to have to. It's a huge amount of work to update all our DLC if we're going to upgrade Unreal Engine. That's right, isn't it? We don't want to have to do this again, do we?
Well, every time we do an upgrade of the Unreal Engine, we do have to come up with some solution which involves updating the packages. But we're learning better and better ways to do it. We're learning from each of these issues, as unfortunate as they are, so that we can avoid them again. But the alternative is that we stagnate the game, and it can't ever develop to do bigger and better things, which is, it's the other side of a double-edged sharp sword. So we need to work out the right way to do it, but maybe make sure that it's worth, we get the full benefit from doing it when we do. So yeah, I mean, if you're thinking Unreal Engine 5, don't for the time being.
You'll have a couple of years before you see any Unreal Engine 5 games from anybody.
We will not be the first game developers to use Unreal Engine to release a game on Unreal Engine 5. Our team are, toying with it. They're playing with it because they're teams, they're game creators that love doing things. So they'll be looking at it, but we are not developing anything with Unreal Engine 5. And there's Unreal Engine 4 still has plenty of untapped potential that we can leverage in future updates before we need to think about Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a Xbox blurry issue. I've seen a couple of I can't remember if it was video or screenshot, but of passenger faces not looking like passenger faces should. Now, is that textures not loading, or is that what we expect them to look like?
That's the first I've heard of that, actually. So,
In that case, I'll forward that in your direction. This
yeah,
is the
maybe.
kind of stuff that the community team gather the feedback for originally, and then it's passed on en masse and logged correctly through the bug database for further investigation. Yeah, I've seen it. It's like a low poly people faces. It's not pretty. It doesn't look good.
Oh, okay.
It's obviously not. It's not occurring all the time, but if it's occurring at all, it shouldn't be.
Right. No, 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 definitely shouldn't be. Definitely not.
Yeah. And I saw someone else ask about on PS5. We in this Q&A bit, we're going to be bouncing around all kinds of topics. So if you're trying to hold on to a thread of conversation, good luck with that. On PS5, the fans kick off as though it's about to try and cool down the entire room, not just the PlayStation. Is that something we observed during testing? Is that something that's going to change? Is that something that can be fixed?
So yes, it is something that is going to be fixed. It's because the menu system runs uncapped in terms of frame rate, and because the menu system is relatively simple in terms of what it can do, it can achieve insane frame rates, which means it ends up actually working the console a lot harder than if it was just in a normal game where you're constrained by this everything, the whole system having to be balanced. So it just needs a frame counter, a frame limiter on there, and that's actually already on someone's queue to get done. Yeah, we will be fixing that.
How long? Adam asks how soon can we expect to see the upgraded passengers and so forth on Bakerloo?
So Preserve team are starting work on that now. I don't have a date to talk about in terms of that at the moment, but we're talking within the time frame of rush hour, I think.
Okay. By which you mean before all of three of the rush hour routes have been released?
Yes.
Because theoretically, rush hour lasts until whatever the next thing is.
I mean, the three routes, yeah, within the three routes. So soon.
Thank you. And also, I mean, you're not going to give dates because I just asked you not to. But what are we talking about for the length of time to deliver all three routes? We've said summer in the past, and if you're taking what's the word I'm looking for? A definition of summer. If you go by the official definition of summer, it doesn't end until mid-September. Are we looking good for staying to the schedule that we originally set out?
I think so. Yeah.
You think
I'm
so?
I'm not seeing any changes on that one. We are reevaluating just to make sure that it's all going to be good because it's more important we get it right than we get it necessarily on a particular day. That is being looked at again at the moment just to make sure we are going to hit that mark on both routes. Yeah, we're looking at that. But so far, it's looking good.
So we're not anticipating delays at the current time, and obviously we haven't announced any dates other than kind of seasonal ones. But we'll keep you informed on whether stuff is moving around or not. Okay, on PS4, why are there no graphic options on PS4? For example, brightness. You've got sound options all over the place, but nothing on the graphic side of things. I mean, obviously that is an omission rather than something that was forgotten. It just wasn't added in the first place.
No, we've never had graphics options on any of the consoles. And to be honest, it is something that I want to rectify because it's particularly with the higher end consoles, there is more of a choice between do I want beautiful or do I want it a high frame rate? And there are some elements you might want to push more of. So, one of the things we have on our list to look at is to work out what settings we can bring with brightness. It's a good example. Then we can, and I know PC users are always clamoring for more settings as well. So settings is a general topic, and I'd certainly like to get more settings onto the console because there's this view that console games generally don't have many settings, but a lot of what we're finding is that console gamers, certainly the console gamers that play train sim, have the same wants, needs, and desires that the PC players do. They want choice and they want to customize the game, make it look the way they want it to look. So
yeah,
we are listening to that.
Who just said that? Aladdin says actions speak louder than words, and you're absolutely right. This is why we're not talking about what's going to happen afterwards. We're not. We've got all manner of fun stuff planned to talk about with Riza Dresden, but we're not going to cover anything of that until we have completed fixing these initial problems. And then we'll be into, okay, based on your feedback, what are we going to address next? But you're absolutely right. All of these are just words, and if we don't follow through on it, then you know it's just words. But you should see the actions come out of this sooner rather than later. But yeah, don't believe a word of it. Wait for something to actually happen out of the other end, and then take it from there. But yeah, we understand that this doesn't help build up more trust. Rather, it does the opposite, and so that's something that we've got to earn back, and we do that through action, not by saying clever things on the internet. So you're just going to have to wait for those actions to turn up and remain skeptical until that point. Right, more question stuff. Why isn't the bell in the operation shift on American locos?
Oh, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I've been reading some good threads on the forum actually talking about the controllers, and lots of people saying they really like the improvements, but and then some things that they like. So there's a couple of bugs that have been picked out, like using the operation shift with the up and the down D-pads actually leaves the it still acts on the reverser. It's not masking out the non-operation shift. So that bug will get added into the list to get looked at. That'll be quite an easy one to fix. So there's two or three things, but yeah, the request for the bell, I hear you. And there's a place we can put it. There's toggling the AFB. That's another common one people have asked about. So I've got a list. I've been going through the forums and I'm making up a list of the things that either are bugs that need fixing or requests for features or changes to have a look at. And we'll go through a process of just evaluating that that these are the right things to do, and we'll be there. There's a few people talking about CIFA. They'll be wanting it to be separated out. I get why you want it to be separated out, but it's not something we'll be doing because we needed to retain compatibility with what's there. We don't have an unlimited number of buttons to play with on the controller, and having a shift function for answering CIFA is far from ideal. So for the time being, that is not planned to be changing. But there are other things there. One of the things we are looking at doing is making it a little bit cleverer so that when you press the safety system acknowledge button, so that's what B on the Xbox and I think so on the PlayStation, it'll actually look to see if it needs to use one function or the other. So if CIFA is not doing anything, but PZB internally is saying I could use an acknowledge right now, then it will apply it to PZB. Similarly, if PZB is not and CIFA is, then it will only apply it to CIFA. So hopefully that will become cleverer. But that's not. I don't know when we'll be able to. When that'll be coming. That is just something that the team are looking at because we want to make sure that works properly. That has the potential to go wrong if we don't get it right. Yeah, looking at a lot of stuff on the controller, and we're listening to you. Underwater, as just said, can we have the ability to speed up the movement of the free camera? Again, if you've got a keyboard, and I appreciate this is not the right answer for a console owner.
No,
but if you have a keyboard, the shift key will give you speed for the time being. But one of the things I want to do is make it to where the longer you hold the stick in the forward direction or in any direction, it just keeps accelerating to where you can overtake anything going on. Because at the moment, the speed it runs is really slow. And actually, because of the way you cycle into the cameras, you're always at the back of the train, which kind of makes it less useful, much less useful. So again, listening to that, trying to come up with ideas to answer your requests. So hopefully we'll be able to come back on some actual tangible changes, fixes, and improvements on that. But that's just where my head is at the moment.
Okay. Let's talk Boston. for a moment because obviously Boston released last week as well, the Boston Sprinter, and it is not without a few hitches here and there. So we've seen services getting stuck. We've seen safety systems, particularly several people have said that safety systems are a little bit off. Uh, what's going to be the process for addressing the feedback that we've had so far?
So we work very closely with Brandon, who built all the track for the route and is just I think he's literally just finished doing the gantry. So we've got to go through a process of getting that in a build now. But he knows this area really well. He knows the signaling really well, and he helped us a lot with the first pass of what's in there. So I've asked him now to go through what people are seeing, his understanding of the system, and also run his own tests as well. And he's gonna produce a document for me saying where we're wrong, and where it needs fixing and improving, and then I can run that by the team. So at the moment, I don't have a list of exactly what's wrong, but I have seen some examples where clearly
It's
it's
being
not.
gathered. We've got feedback coming your way. It's not going to be long.
No, no, exactly. But Brandon's doing his own review, just at a technical level, based on because some of the feedback, some of the observations. So let's take, for example, there's one relatively unique characteristic on the Northeast Corridor, which is not present if you don't know on other railways, and that is multiple train occupation, or say multiple trains in a block. So on the Northeast Corridor, trains will not be asked to stop before they enter a block. So you can run right up to the back of another train. Now, if you're not used to that, and you're not told, not aware that that's a thing, that obviously seems terribly, terribly wrong. Surely a red light should have stopped you before you had the chance to get near another train. But this is actually a thing that happens on the Northeast Corridor. And Brandon actually shared on the forum a picture of exactly that happening that he spotted, that he was able to take himself. So, but it's not always happening in quite the right places. And so there is some things about that aren't working quite right. The signaling system is also holding you back too much. It's slowing you down too much. It's being overcautious. So we need to look at that and just let you get a bit faster on some of it. There are a couple of operational fine points in there with the way that access works, the speed enforcement system. One of the things that people are also comparing with is the implementation from the original Northeast Corridor, NTSW 2020. And we have scrapped that and completely redeveloped it because what we found was, again, through Brandon and other beta testers' help, is it was quite wrong. So one of the key things people are looking for is the time to penalty counter. They're looking for the time to penalty counter counting down, and that doesn't happen. Well, in reality, it doesn't happen. In reality, that time to penalty counter only applies if you're approaching a red light. And at any other point in time, it just flicks down to the lower speed, and then you do the acknowledge and put it in suppression braking. That is how you're supposed to drive normally. There is no time to penalty there. So there are some comparisons there which are not necessarily valid, but what we've not done is communicated that. So with the community feedback that will come from the community team via the forums and so forth, plus Brandon's own independent review that he's conducting, and we've also now got on our beta team, we've got people actually who manage and maintain these trains on the Northeast Corridor themselves, so they can give us first-hand feedback of what's going on, and between all of that, we should be able to work out what changes need to be made to get the right experience on the route. So it is suboptimal at the moment, and we have the right people on coming up with the right answers for this.
That's pretty thorough. A couple of people have been asking where the best place is to give feedback. Anywhere. Anywhere is a good place to give feedback, apart from the stream. The stream is the worst place to do it because we don't go through and transcribe your messages. We'll quite happily answer your questions, but if you have feedback to give, please post it either on the Dovetail forums or the Facebook group, or send it to us via Twitter. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. You can find us flipping anywhere. Or comments on this video on YouTube after the stream is finished We read all of those. They're collated by the community team, and then they're passed on to the development team for consideration. So if you are experiencing something that you think is off, and it doesn't matter if it's off by a little bit or off by a lot, let us know. It's not for you. You can decide whether something is important or not, and then we'll decide whether it's something or not to be addressed. And that's by far and away the best way to give your feedback, because that way we can see if there is a bunch of people all saying you need to look at this, then we'll probably look at it, and that's as simple as it goes. Now, Mick, a couple of minutes ago, said that apologising is becoming a bit of a habit for DTG. And you can go, yeah, it is, but hopefully only ever on one topic one time. To make a mistake is fine, as long as you learn from it and don't do it again. And we've had a run of getting a couple of things wrong, but it's not the same thing repeatedly, mercifully. If we were to get the same thing wrong repeatedly, then that's a slightly different matter. So yeah, this was a problem that we'd foreseen, and we felt that we'd taken the right steps to avoid it. And in 6 out of 7 cases, we had done. And in 1, on 3 routes out of 40 plus, we missed. And that caused a problem that we were trying to avoid. So yeah, sorry about that, and we'll have it fixed for you as soon as possible. There you go. It sucks, but that's the hand of cards that we have dealt at the current time. On PS4, you can't access the weather sliders.
No.
Just as a random comment that just popped
Well,
up.
you can, but what's missing is the very, very helpful highlight that tells you which slider you're on. So you can, if you count in your head, and this is clearly not a good experience, but if you count in your head as you go up and down, you can position yourself on the right one and it will work. But that's horrible, and it will get fixed.
Okay. Trooper Gaming asks, why does my cursor keep resetting to default on console every time the game is launched? I saw someone else saying that they'd selected some menu options and they're being forgotten in between sessions.
Just settings being said, okay, that's not something we'd seen before.
I think that UI size settings, I think, is not necessarily being remembered.
Yeah, we've had problems with settings not saving on a couple of other things, but clearly we've added some new settings here and they've not been added to the save restore on that screen. So, or they've not been added correctly. We'll get that fixed as well.
Sliders don't highlight on the Xbox One either. So there is clearly some UI work to be done there. How many people have we actually got working in the UI team? Or how many people work on UI?
I think there's 2 in the company that work on UI, and I'm actually borrowing someone from the engineering team at the moment to do some other UI stuff on the game at the minute. So it's not enough is the answer to that question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, not enough. Chief Longshin saying, what will happen with the diorama, because at the moment you can't see the train livery or the weather. It doesn't say which platform is on. But
it's the same as, because of the new on the front and slightly to the side, you can't actually see you can't see the train very well. It's not come off quite as well as we'd hoped. And we are going to have a discussion about that diorama and see if it's the right one. I quite like it personally, but I definitely take the feedback everyone's giving, and maybe we need to offer a second option or something.
Right.
Camera in a different position, but we did originally try it at a much more angle to the side, and I can't remember why that was turned away. But we will. We will look at it. We hear your feedback, totally.
Bal UK says, apart from the new horrible orange interface, and it's not just orange, apparently there's about a dozen different colours in there, as though put together by someone who just likes all the colours of the rainbow equally.
One of them is pink.
One of them is grey, and another one is not quite so grey. And another one is a little bit less grey than that, but slightly more grey than the... We've had some feedback on colours. Anyway, the rest of the question is, what exactly does the 1.43 update do? If you were to summarize, what has this update done?
1.43. That's a PlayStation update, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think 1.43 was the patch build, if I remember rightly, and I don't know exactly what was in that build. That one was done between the engineering team and the build system, so um, it was part of the attempted fix for getting things working on PlayStation.
That's probably the fix that allowed people to at least play NEC if they'd just picked it up.
That was the case. Yeah, I think that's that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know what exactly was involved in that.
Okay. All right. Fine. Natalie said it stopped the crashing. So that was
Oh,
quite a useful one then.
that's a good one then. Can we get more of them?
Yeah. No. You're not. No, you can't make jokes. No, not yet. No, too soon for jokes. Fix everything. Wait until everybody's happy about something, and then you can make jokes. No jokes permitted until we fix stuff. Serious face, Matt, for crying out loud. Engineer Kenny asks again. Apologies if we miss your questions. We're getting quite a few. Don't know if you've noticed the chat. But the MBTA F40PH 3C Loco keeps shutting down mid-route. No power unless brakes are reset. I think this is a bug, but not sure. Is that something you've seen? The FP40? The F40PH. I don't know why I keep calling it an FP40.
No, that's not something I've seen. So if you can get, what would be ideal for that is a video that repros it, showing us the issue. One of the things we learned from the Caltrain F40, because the real F40s have a position below zero, which is the engine shutdown position. And one of the things we learned from people on that was that it might be technically accurate, but it's hateful and horrible, and don't do it. Because every time you put the throttle to zero, you accidentally shut the engine off. And that's just terrible. So we actually, on the MBTA one, that position is not modeled for exactly that reason. So I'm actually surprised to hear that. So it suggests something else might be going on there. So I would definitely like to get more information on what's going on there.
Right. Beta, a couple of people have said, are we going to give some kind of discount or a freebie or something like that by way of sorry we goofed? That's too soon to discuss that. It is something that has been discussed, but we've got nothing to talk about on that front because the thing that we're focusing on right now is actually fixing it. So it's too soon to answer that question, but we have seen the requests come in. Make note, people have requested free stuff. That's not to be glib about it, although that was being glib about it. But no, we've seen the requests. Sure. What else we got? Dovetail Live. A couple of people are reporting that Dovetail Live is behaving erratically. What's it called? The menu that I always skip. Mastery. That's the thing. Yeah. What's going on with that? Because it doesn't seem to be behaving itself at the moment.
Again, that's not something I've seen. I know that the Dovetail Live team are working hard and behind the scenes on what they're seeing server side. But if you're having problems, then make sure you're reporting them via the support ticket system, and then that will go into either our engineering team if it's because of the game, or back to the Dovetail Live team if it's related to the way the back end system is processing that.
So Dovetail Live's run by a separate team. They look after quite a few different bits and pieces for us, but they are part of Dovetail, but it's a separate team, and we will be collecting your feedback on Dovetail Live, and that includes Mastery. We'll be collecting that and passing it forward, but I've personally seen it not being at maximum performance of late, so it could just be that it's a busier period than normal, especially when people are constantly checking to see if there's any new news. But yeah, we're aware, and we'll get that looked into, because it's not working as well as it should do, or as well as it needs to, at any rate. The word Stoughton. All right, the word Stoughton doesn't appear on the PIS on Boston Sprinter.
It doesn't. There. One of the things. So in the streams on the run up to release, we have itemized two or three things which are being worked on at the moment on the timetable. One of which is that there's a couple of stations actually not showing up consistently on the PAS. I think Stoughton is one of them, and Reedville might be another one. And it's to do with, we found now it's to do with how it's routing, how the instructions are set up means the PAS is not picking them up. So there's a few changes and improvements coming to the service mode, which restores the depot services for the Amtrak services, restores Amtrak Train 137 to being playable, fixes the PIS, and some other things. So again, I'm looking at the forums and seeing what people are experiencing, and working out what we can do to improve it. So we can roll in hopefully a nice improvement to the service mode at the same time.
Quite so. I've seen a few more comments about Dovetail Live, such as Master isn't working on Boston. I log in, it tells me I haven't, and then mysteriously I'm logged in. That screenshots aren't uploading on PS5. And Sifas Vangslager is saying that the website itself is very slow. But could that be because I live in Germany? No. No, it's the internet. It should work smoothly no matter where you are. So yeah, we're aware that Dovetail Live is Dovetail almost live at the moment, and we'll pass that feedback on. Yeah, we'll see if we can't. We might see if we can get Dovetail Live on the show at some point, so people can ask questions and see where it goes. Because they've got interesting ideas, and it'd be good to see. Leo's asking, why is the game suddenly on English? Leo, I assume that you're on Steam, in which case reset the language options because that's been fixed. If you're not on Steam, don't know. There you go. Might need a little bit more information there, Leo. Yeah, there we are.
Get in touch with the support team, and we'll help you out.
How did it affect the PS4 so badly with the update files and not the PS5? Is there a difference in the files?
Yes, completely different set of files.
Yeah, and so as you can see, I mean, the files deployed correctly 6 out of 7 times, and then we had 3 out of 40 plus files that didn't deploy correctly on one platform only, and the upshot is what PS4 players are currently experiencing. I'd say tolerating, but frankly, at this stage, everyone is quite right to be verbally annoyed.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
You can interpret however you like. There you go. Fix languages Steam, please. We have done Ghosts. You can now access your languages properly on Steam. That fix went out, didn't it?
I'm not sure if that fix has gone out yet.
I was certain that fix went out. I saw that it went out. Nat, can you see if you can confirm whether the fix went out? My apologies. I was pretty certain that fix had already been released.
Check your version number on Steam in the settings. You need to be on a 27 or later to have that fix. So if you haven't got 27 or later, it's because it isn't out yet. So hang fire. But it's my last update on that today was that it was in QA. And they were doing some tests on it now, because there's no point deploying a fix that still hasn't been fully LQA'd with the new process that we want to follow. So I've run build 27.
Oh, I've jumped the gun then, haven't I?
I think you might have done. I've run build 27 myself.
Yeah.
And it's and I did all the settings. I switched my laptop onto German, and I was very happy to see everything was now in German. So I'm reasonably happy, but it's now in QA and LQA for them to do for the full testing round. So look out for that coming. It'll be out as soon as
it's going to be out very, very quickly, because it's a really small fix. Neuer,
24 is the current shipping build. That's what I thought. So yeah, it hasn't gone out yet. So look out for 27 or later coming.
Neuer Gameram start. If you watch the beginning of this stream, it will explain what's going on with the PS4 bug. The same goes for anybody else who's on PS4 who didn't catch the start of the stream. We talk about it extensively right at the beginning. If you don't want to go and watch it again, fix is coming very soon. We're testing it now. and apologies that you've been locked out of your add-on collection for the last 5 days. Not good enough. It is being addressed. There you go. Sebsis says it's still build 24 on here. So there we go. I did jump the gun. That's on me. I was fairly certain I'd read that had gone out. Right. On PS4, timetable debrief on the last stop accuracy is missing. Yes, the last stop you make is, I don't think that's necessarily just PS4. It doesn't tell you how close you were to the final stop.
Okay, I haven't seen any reports on that one, so I'll have a look myself. And it depends on what kind of a stop that is. If it's a proper passenger stop, then it should be there, and that would be a bug. And sometimes, though, because of the way they work, the final stop is just a blue circle rather than the markers on the track. And the distance is only reported for the markers on the track type stops,
right.
Which is a limitation of the current system. But get me a couple of worked examples and get those submitted so that I can go and have a look, and I can just double check that and make sure I'm not missing something. If it is that case that it's a known limitation, then it is on our list to resolve at some point, yes.
Okay. Simpman is asking, will there be a performance or resolution option coming to PS5 anytime soon?
It's actually been really interesting seeing the feedback. We only put the resolution option into Series S, and both Series X and PS5 players have been saying, "What about us?" So that'll go on our list of things to look at.
More options are a good thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, let everybody cut down their options if they want it to run more smoothly. That's I can't see any problem with that. Sam's Autistic Adventures says, any news about rush hour routes? We covered this a little earlier, but we'll cover it again today. We do have exciting things to show you on Riesa Dresden, but we're not going to do so until we fix the problems. It's not right for us to be showing you shiny things while some people are unable to experience the stuff they already own. So we're going to hold on to that until it's ready to go. But Riesa Dresden's not far away. And then London Brighton is also not far away either. So there will be more news. Right now, both the routes are on target. They're tracking to release when we were expecting them to. But we'll know exactly when we're a little bit closer. But there we go. Is the update going to take more than a few months? No. Leaving plenty of space there, so there's no ambiguity. No, it's not going to take more than a couple of months. It will take well within a couple of months, and hopefully for PlayStation users, we're talking within hopefully days, ideally day, but it's going through testing at the moment, and everything going well, and the tests all work fine. Then we'll get a schedule release for that as quickly as possible. Right, good. Riesa Dresden is coming first, Rexy. So Riesa Dresden first, and then Brighton afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah. On the PS5 main menu is laggy. Why is this, and is it an issue on other platforms? Define laggy. I noticed when I was doing a manual scroll, and I'm on PC, obviously, so that's slightly different. Doing a manual scroll through the routes on the route menu is very slow. But the second you use the mouse wheel, it's incredibly quick to get through that menu, which is great. I would say that those routes aren't necessarily in any kind of a sensible order. They're in a baffling order.
They're ordered by the order of release.
Well, that's no good to me. I can't remember the order in which they were released. I would suggest the alphabet isn't a bad way to go, or maybe group by. I mean, since we've got the operating companies are now listed, is the sorting thing. Let's group them by some. Come on, man. Come on. Work with people. I joke, but we are taking feedback on the new UI. There is a good thread running in the PC forum already. Suggestions is a great place to go and stick it. If you've got feedback on the new UI, please let us have it, and then it can be evaluated.
Yeah.
InstaSim says group them by the last letter of the country they operate in.
Nice.
I mean, that's going to be as good as what we've got going on now. Right. Okay. Good. Right. Now, next. Is there still a stream on Thursday? Yes, we are still intending to stream on Thursday, but what that stream will be is to be decided. If everything is up and bright and shiny, now that doesn't mean we'll have fixed absolutely everything, but it means you will be able to play everything you own. Then the stream on Thursday will be a preview. If, however, we haven't reached that stage, and please let us have reached that stage, then instead we will do a full TSW Q&A session. We'll get questions done in advance, and we'll bring Adam in as well, so that we can talk a little bit more about Preservation Crew 2022. I think that's what we should call them, though. We should rebrand them for the next year. So it's either or. We won't leave you without a stream entirely, but it will either be a preview, and if it's inappropriate for us to do a preview, then we'll talk something else. There you go. If you were hoping I'm going to ask you another question.
Well, be nice.
I mean, you can cherry pick if you like. I know you've got the chat up.
I've made some notes from things that I've seen. If you need a moment.
Well, okay. Well, that's. I mean, I think that's probably going to wrap the stream up. We've covered a lot of stuff, but obviously it's not exhaustive. There are questions that people have asked that haven't been answered. Is the 313 still coming for East Coastway? Yes, it is. And because this is not a proper roadmap stream, because, well, firstly, the roadmap, there's not much new on there. In the next one, we will focus on exactly what Adam's working on, and we'll have, you never know, we might have a couple of new bits on there as well. There's a couple of new bits that are close, and we'll go by that. So there you go. That's going to wrap it up for today. If we missed an important question, please do post it on the forums, and the community team will keep you updated constantly on the forums. In the announcement thread on the forum, Natalie's keeping that announcement post up to date with the latest information. As soon as there is more, we will post more. Keep your eye on trainsimworlds.com. The news section of there will announce when there is a big update to be done. Once more, sorry that the update has not been smooth for everyone, and we'll rectify that as quickly as possible. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Sam.
Right, why don't you go and get back to work, and I shall go and get back to work.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, I can put my mouse cursor over you. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.